Hello and welcome to the Weekday Warriors of Wrestling, being recorded on November 13th, 2020. I'm Erik, Clancy alongside Patrick Kelley. We've got, I wouldn't say a ton to talk about. We've got enough to talk about. We can talk Wednesday Night Wars. We're going to be discussing Full Gear from last Saturday. We've got some WWE we'll chat about. So yeah. Make sure to hit like and subscribe. As always, we always appreciate it. And put your comments below. Definitely love to hear what all of you have to say on the show and everything that's going on in wrestling. I guess the big thing, and chronologically, the first thing we should do is talk about AEW Full Gear. It was on Saturday night. And Patrick, what were your thoughts on the show?
Overall, top to bottom, I thought it was pretty good. I would give it, if I were going to assign a letter grade to it, I would give it a B+ overall. There were a few things that didn't quite work as well for me, but the stuff that worked, I thought really, really worked well. What
were the things you thought worked and what didn't work?
I love the tag title match. I really liked the TNT title match. The opening match was pretty good. Those were the things I enjoyed the most. The stuff that didn't work for me as much, the women's title, the one on the main card especially, I thought was really bad. And the main event wasn't terrible. I didn't think it was bad. I just didn't think it was, I kind of wish they had just closed with the tag match because I think that was the bigger match.
Yeah. So I would say actually, and I don't mean this maybe not. Maybe it wasn't worse than All Out 2020, but I thought it was definitely one of the weaker AEW pay-per-views. And I say that, but AEW has their pay-per-view track record is short and generally very good. I still think probably Double or Nothing 2019 is the best one because the card was great and they had that just amazing cliffhanger ending, which was awesome with a huge surprise, which I think is actually AEW's weakest aspect. I think is their endings. I think they're halfway between WWE, where it's just brawls and stuff, or New Japan, where their big thing for an ending is here's the next challenger, which I don't think is necessarily the worst thing. I thought how they closed Full Gear with Kenny Omega coming out to Jon Moxley, I think that made sense and set up for what I think should be the biggest Dynamite ever with that match coming up. But yeah, so I thought it was a good show. I thought the opening match was the match of the night. Omega and Page. I thought it was great. I thought it was chock full of emotion. I'll be honest. I saw the tag team match and I liked it, but and this is probably because I have a 5-month-old, but I was falling asleep at the end of the pay-per-view, and every match was so fucking long. The Elite Deletion match did not need to be 20 minutes or whatever it was. Patrick, how long was that match?
I have the card pulled up here. That match was 19 minutes and 39 seconds.
It does not need to be that long. It can be a 7-minute match. I cannot explain to you how much Matt Hardy doesn't work. Doesn't work on any level. And I'll say this to people who it worked in Impact because Impact was a fucking joke. And there was nothing else on that show. And people were like, hey, let's have basically Mystery Science Theater 3000 here. And that's fine. But when the product is respectable, like AEW, and you do this stuff, it's just silly and stupid. And Matt Hardy gets credit for being a creative genius. I think he's fucking stupid. I think he's bad. I think he's bad at being creative. I can't say that any more plainly. He's fucking dumb. There was when in 2005, and honestly, we may have interviewed him in 2005. I want to say, but maybe we didn't.
If you did, I wasn't part of it.
It may have been a thing with where James and I interviewed him. I don't know, but I do remember he was injured and he was going to come back. Remember, but he got fired because Edge and Lita were having the affair and everything. But he was his initial plan, he was injured, and his initial plan was he's I'm going to come back as this new character. It's going to be this amazing character. And you're like, oh, cool. And he's like, it's going to kind of like, push the boundaries of pro wrestling characters. And I was like excited. I was like, oh, that sounds cool. What's it going to be? And he's like, it's going to be the Angelic Diablo. And the character will be like, it was like fucking like Two-Face, but it was terrible. It was like a dumb idea. Like, and I think that's the kind of quote unquote creativity that Matt has. He's not as smart as he thinks he is. And it's this kind of stuff where like, and it sucks because I think Sammy's great. I think Sammy is like Chris Jericho in 98. I think he's funny. I think he's interesting. I think he's handsome. I think he's talented. I think he's like got like everything you want in a future star. And Matt's just like fucking ridiculous. And there's a point where you're like, oh, okay, like shooting the fireworks, I guess is kind of funny. And like, but it's just like, it just comes off as low rent. And I think the first time they did this broken stuff was like 2014. And it's like it's run its course. Like it's been like 6 years of doing this. It doesn't matter from a business perspective, really. And like, it's not really that good, I don't think. And I think people are almost like embarrassed into liking it. Like, I think there's like this very vocal group of fans who are like, oh, this stuff is funny, because like, I guess there was a movement at some point where it was kind of funny. And then they like kind of like shame other people into liking it. It's just like, it's bad. I don't find it engaging. I don't find it entertaining. I know my initial point was that these matches were too long, but like, there's no goddamn reason Elite Deletion should have been 20 minutes.
Erik, what are you talking about? There is nothing that happens in any kind of nerd fan base or anything where they shame people into liking stuff. That's a thing that never happens.
Crazy talk.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'll give my 2 cents on the Elite Deletion match. I agree with you that the broken stuff has kind of run its course, and Matt Hardy's whole run in AEW feels like it's been snake bit from the word go. From the debut to the injury he suffered, like everything. Like, Matt Hardy has just been kind of a flop in AEW.
And I mean, I'll let you finish. I'm gonna let you finish, but the fact is, Matt Hardy as a worker doesn't have to offer anything. Do you remember when he was like getting injured in matches with like Jason Jordan in WWE, and he was like couldn't do any matches, and he was like, and that was like 3 years ago, and like it's now 2020, and it's like, who thinks this? Like, Sammy Guevara is like a 25, 26-year-old athlete who competes and can wrestle, and Matt Hardy is a 46-year-old man who is not in good shape and can't. So I don't know what they're doing anymore, but with that, at least. So I just don't get it, but go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, overall, I didn't hate this match as much as you did. And again, I fully agree that the broken stuff is like completely run its course and everything, but this match almost felt like an apology to Matt Hardy after what happened at the last pay-per-view. So I was like, all right, let him have it. Let him just do his thing. As long as it doesn't become a standard at AEW pay-per-views where they have to do the broken match at every single show. If this is just a one-off, I'm okay with it, I guess. But to me, it was just kind of like a really long filler after the tag match is kind of how I took it.
And it's just like, why does Sammy, like, really? Sammy's got a job to Matt in 2 straight pay-per-views? Like who are we building here? Are we building the 26-year-old who's associated with Chris Jericho? Or are we building goddamn Matt Hardy? Like, really? Like, he got the win last time when he couldn't even compete because he did something that he probably shouldn't have been doing. And like, I don't know. It's just stuff like that. It's like, why don't we build up Sammy? Like, maybe there's more money in that, you know?
They proved that on Dynamite this week when, like, his stuff with MJF, I think, is way more interesting than Hardy's done the entire time he's been in AEW.
Yeah. I mean, yes, 100%. All the stuff Sammy does with the Inner Circle, I think, like, I mean, we saw Sammy in Lucha Underground. I thought he was fine. I was like, yeah, whatever. And then he got to AEW, and I think he was fine. But then once he joined the Inner Circle, like, I think it's a combination of being in a spot with Chris Jericho and learning from Chris Jericho and being in that high profile spot, but he's really shined. And I think he's one of those guys, along with like Darby Allin and MJF, that came into AEW kind of like nothing really. I mean, not nothing. MJF was had some buzz and stuff, but like, and is now like a difference maker as a star. So like, I just don't know what they're doing with that. I thought a lot of these matches were a little too long. I thought maybe the Bucks. You know what? I'm gonna have to watch the Bucks FTR again. Because like, you know, I know everybody raved about it, and I liked the finish. I thought the finish was good. I thought ending on a super kick was good. I thought the 450. I thought the no flips, just fist guys going and doing flips was very interesting. So there's that. But like, I mean, I'll say the thing I said about the FTR match against Kenny Omega and Hangman, which I thought was fine, but I certainly did not echo Meltzer's take on it. They don't need to be this long sometimes, you know, I understand some matches need to. I think Kenny Omega and Adam Page should have been probably a little bit longer. But yeah, I thought it was just, you know, you could have shortened it a little bit, in my opinion.
Sure, you probably could have, and I agree that, you know, this need to have a 30-minute match on every single pay-per-view is not something that they need to constantly feed into every time. We talked about it with WrestleMania a lot, where a lot of the recent WrestleManias is like, all right, Triple H has got to have that 25, 30-minute match that he doesn't need, and various other things like that. But this one, I think because I was marking out so much for all the different tag team moves that they were stealing from past tag teams.
Yeah.
And doing all that stuff, and like the sheer contrast of styles between the two teams. Like one guy's the flippy, you know, one team is the flippy flop guys, and the other one's the ground and pound, old school type of guys. I think there was a natural chemistry between them that just worked for me. So I really enjoyed the tag match.
Yeah. What else do we have? I agree with you on the TNT match. I liked Darby Allin against Cody. I thought, I think we all kind of thought going in that Darby losing would be a major impediment to his future development, because I think he's had like 4 matches with Cody, and I think he's lost like 2 of them, and like he's like had a draw against one of them, and it's been nice because, you know, you see him in the first match at was it Fyter Fest? Yeah, I think it was Fyter Fest, where he goes to the draw with Darby, and it's kind of like, oh wow, you thought this would just be a situation where Cody, like, you know, rolls over him, and then Cody beats him kind of decisively the next time, and then the next time Darby almost has him with the coffin drop, and Cody pins him. So it's like each time he's getting like progressively closer to beating Cody. So there was a nice arc to that. There was a nice story, and the fact that he was able to beat Cody, not like he didn't like kick his ass or anything, but he got the win. And I think that was a nice, like, you actually feel like some kinetic energy and like the character is going somewhere. So I like that match. I thought Cody put him over well.
Going back to the finish, and this ties into the tag team match as well, and MJF and Jericho as well. I generally like the finishes across the board.
Yes, I'd agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it when a match ends on a roll-up, because if they don't end matches, what's the point of even doing them at all? So it's nice to see that happen once in a while. It's nice to see a match end on a super kick after the non-flip-floppy guys screw up and do a flip-flop move, and it costs them. I like that they protected the one-winged angel and just had that be the finish for the Omega Hangman match. And MJF Jericho, I thought the finish was the best part of that match. I thought it was great. So I generally really like the finishes across the board here.
Yeah, and I generally think AEW does finishes really well. I mean, ever since that first match on Dynamite, when like Sammy like missed the 450 or the shooting star press, I think it was the shooting star press, and then Cody like pins him because of that. It's like, oh, high risk, high reward. You missed the thing and you got pinned. You know, like that matters. So like I think AEW does. It's funny because people will trash AEW compared to like WWE and be like, oh, it's just all these indie things. I'm like, dude, AEW has more like old school wrestling psychology than WWE ever has, you know? So like WWE is the one that has like, I mean, everybody does dives now. I mean, we're going to have to accept that that's like something that's always going to happen. But like, if you watch like WWE and NXT's like Ring of Honor 2006 style matches, like and come to the conclusion that AEW is the indie promotion, I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, I agree. I like the finishes there. I like the MJF Jericho finish. I think the MJF Jericho stuff in the Inner Circle stuff is so interesting. And I like that they're taking this slow burn. I like that, you know, I remember after All Out, everybody was like, oh, so it's going to be like MJF and Wardlow at Full Gear, and my reaction to that was always like, you don't need to do these things like immediately. You can like let them build and like take some time to do them. I mean, how long did like Virgil and Ted DiBiase like how long did it take to get to that point?
Right.
And so I like the fact that like the next night he was like, hey, I lost this match, I need a group, and eventually MJF like got himself into a group, and there's the tension with MJF and Wardlow. There's the tension with the Inner Circle and Jericho. Like there's Sammy and MJF. There's so many layers, and it reminds me like of WWF 1997, which you and I always talk about as probably being the peak creative year for WWF. And like you had all these characters. You had like Steve Austin and The Undertaker, and Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart and Ken Shamrock and Triple H and Vader. You had all these characters, and it wasn't this blanket thing where it's like all the good guys hate the bad guys and all the good guys are friends and all the bad guys are friends. It'd be like, no, Steve Austin hates everybody. Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart, even when they were faces, like didn't like each other. Shawn Michaels and Steve Austin don't like each other, but they hate the Hart Foundation, so they'll get along. Like Bret Hart has like differing opinions on different people. Like it was just such a detailed look at storytelling, because if you ever like take a theater class, or you're or an acting class or whatever, they'll go through like what they're called guideposts, and they're like basically things you go through when you're like learning your character. And relationships is one of the key ones, and it's basically like, how do you feel about each of the characters in the play or the movie or whatever it is. And you don't have this like, well, I hate all these guys, because that's boring and not specific and not interesting. But like, if you have specific opinions on people, oh well, how does he feel about this person, how does he feel about that person, that's interesting. Because what kills wrestling is when it's just so surface level, and when it's so predictable. Like if you say, well, MJF's a heel, so he hates all the good guys. But if you say, well, MJF's a heel, and he really doesn't like most people at all, but he likes Chris Jericho, and he has this relationship with Wardlow, and like you're like, huh, well that's interesting, because like that's a little different. If you look at John Moxley, and he's a face, but he also doesn't like this face, and like it's specificity and nuance that kind of like piques your interest. So I always appreciate that AEW kind of veers into that more detail oriented storytelling than like the WWE of recent years. And by recent years, I mean like the last 20 years of just saying like, whatever, you're friends because you're good guys now.
What you've just outlined is exactly why I'm not a huge fan of lumberjack matches most of the time, because it does exactly that, where it's like all the faces are on this side of the ring, all the heels are on this side of the ring, and whether or not you get hurt depends on which side of the ring you're thrown out on. I was like, well, why do all these... And I never got it.
Yeah, it like, I mean, that's that Bill Watts like mentality. That's that, we protected kayfabe so much that we had all the baby faces in one hotel and all the heels in another hotel. I'm like, boy, that's protecting kayfabe. Nobody's gonna think it's fake if all of your bad guys are in one hotel. You have fucking bad guys. Did that occur to you? Does that sound fucking stupid? Because it sounds stupid to me, you idiot. Like you get so like it's you get so like in the weeds on this shit that you forget like what it's supposed to be. And you're like, oh, we got to keep the good guys and bad guys apart. You're acknowledging that there's fucking good guys and bad guys out loud to people, and they had to stay in different hotels. So you're acknowledging that you're aware of a divide. You're stupid. You're dumb. You're a fucking hick. Anyway, I'm riled up today. So yeah, I like the show. I thought, like I said, I thought Omega and Page was my favorite match, and once again, that's character work to me. I mean, don't get me wrong, I thought the match was fire. I thought this to me was a culmination of character work, great athleticism, and build up. You've looked at the matches in this tournament, and to me, Page has been fire.
Mm-hmm.
That match with Wardlow, I thought was like one of the best Dynamite matches of the year. I thought Wardlow looked great. I thought Page looked great. They just had fire to them, and they were aggressive and interesting, and I like that. And Kenny in this tournament has been amazing. Like, Kenny, you and I have said it for a while. Like, if you're going to promote Kenny Omega as your top guy, he needs to crush lower carders. He doesn't need to be going one-on-one, fist for fist with Joey Janela. He needs to do what he did to Sonny Kiss. Go out there, one wing angel them through the mat, and then get out of there. So they've added this layer to Kenny, that he's just this kind of total asshole, and it's been amazing. And like, the Sonny Kiss stuff was great. The stuff with Hangman has been great. And then the stuff on Dynamite this week when he says, oh, Moxley, I don't think we've ever faced before because I couldn't find anything in the record books, which is true. It's one of the great marks of a heel. Like, a heel is technically right, but he's a fucking asshole about it. So Kenny is technically correct that John Moxley and he have not had an official AEW match because it was a lights out match. And he's like, I'll beat you with normal rules. He's like, you might be crazy and stuff, but guess what? There are rules in pro wrestling, and I'm going to beat you using them. And like, that's so interesting to me because we know that John Moxley can beat him in a hardcore match, but can John Moxley beat him in a wrestling match? So that's interesting. And I thought all that character work they've been doing with Kenny Omega and all the great stuff they've done with Hangman over the past year culminated in two strong characters going at it against each other. And I mean, Kenny wins clean. So like, he's a jerk, he's an asshole, but he's also really good. And Hangman gets more self-doubt. And I think, to me, that works for both guys because it keeps Kenny going and it gives Hangman something else to like mull over and something else to feel doubt over. Right. And I think the end game of this is going to be Hangman eventually beating world champion Kenny Omega at some point down the road, but like, we're not there yet. And I think that's cool. You can let these things simmer and you can tell these stories over a matter of years, not months or weeks in WWE's case. So that for those reasons, that's why that was my favorite match.
Yeah, it was the opening match too, which I was shocked when they came out first. I was like, oh wow, we're starting off with the hot one first. And I'm with you. I thought it was a stellar match.
Yeah, I mean that's how you start off a show. I think people always say that the first match is the second most important match after the main event, which I agree with you. I thought this was better than the main event. I didn't dislike the main event. I thought it was fine. I didn't have huge expectations for it. I thought the finish was a little lackluster. Like, it didn't have the drama or gravitas I would have liked. But like, you also got to remember that every match and every pay-per-view can't end with like Okada and Omega or like Steve Austin and Bret Hart. There's got to be those kind of, I don't want to say like filler matches, but like, Moxley's got to just like trample some people, and Moxley's been champion for like, I think 3 months short of a year at this point. So sometimes it's more important to establish a star than it is to have a great match.
Sure. Well, that's what helps makes the great matches. And I think that's part of what's hurt modern day wrestling, where everybody tries to have the match of the night and everybody tries to steal the show. And, you get to a point where I think we call it like the Kurt Angle formula or the epic match formula or something, where everybody's doing that. And once everybody does that, these matches are no longer as special as they once were.
Well, I'll point out a fantastic example of a match that's like two guys who are not good workers in any sense, but two guys who were booked as humongous stars that put on a good match, probably the best match that they are capable of doing. And it wasn't because they were great workers. It was because they were huge characters and huge stars. And that's Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior. Everybody knows how I feel about Hulk Hogan. I think he's a terrible worker, but the fact was he was built up to be a huge star and it was made to feel important when he competed. Ultimate Warrior, same deal. Their match at WrestleMania 6 is like, people love that match, and it's because who's gonna win. And you've had these like Ultimate Warrior near undefeated. Hogan, like, for the most part, hadn't suffered any like legit loss at any point. It was a big deal. And would you say that like Hogan and Warrior are as good of workers as some of these guys that are out here now? No, probably not. But the guys that are out here now don't have the promotional and emotional capital put into them to to be on that level. So like, like that's why you have Moxley just beat dudes, because at some point, and December 2nd seems to be that point, you're going to have Moxley go against another top star, and you're going to be like, whoa, what's going to happen here? And you're going to kind of cash those chips in.
Actually, that's a great example, WrestleMania 6, but the one that immediately popped into my head was Hogan and Andre, because there you have same kind of situation, two limited guys, and one of those guys with basically one foot in the grave at that point. But
yeah, one of the guys couldn't move.
Yeah, and it didn't matter. Like, they were able to create a situation that got people invested in. I think they delivered in spades. They delivered exactly what they needed to.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody was happy with what they got out of that match for the most part. Yeah, and it's funny, I talk about Warrior, like, with Hogan. Warrior's got, like, this, like, insane, like, WrestleMania record where he did that match, and then he did the Savage match. So it was like for 2 years in a row, Warrior had like the best match on the card at a WrestleMania.
And his return saved the ending of WrestleMania 8 from being a disaster.
Yeah.
He was the lifeblood of the early 90s WrestleManias.
Yeah, well, he's like, I mean, to this day, like, I think if they hadn't had that steroid scandal, like, Vince would have ran with, like, Warrior in, like, 93 and 94.
Most likely, yeah.
I've gotten into discussions with people like, no. He eventually would have just went with Bret and Shawn. I'm like, no, he would not have. He would not have done that. I 100% disagree. Ultimate Warrior was younger than Bret Hart was. Like, Vince would have fucking like ran with that as long as he could.
Mm-hmm. The only like kind of pin in that is Warrior's personality and his ability to disagree with people. That was the one thing that was holding him back.
Yes, and obviously that happened, and that's why it went that way. So like it's an if you can't take out of the equation, because it happened and it was a key factor of why he wasn't there. But yeah, I mean that's the same. Like, it's always the things that you like. Well, if it had been like this, and like, well, you can't, like, in the same point, like I mentioned Shawn Michaels, like, wow, Shawn Michaels probably would have been great if he hadn't like self-destructed and like been a pill addict and like, well, yeah, but then he probably wouldn't have been as interesting, and yeah, he probably wouldn't have hurt his back. I mean, he probably could have come back in like late 99 and 2000, but like, that's a big if to take out of it,
Yeah, well, it's funny you mentioned this. I was having this conversation with somebody earlier this week, and we were like, man, what's missing in modern wrestling? And he finally said, what's really missing? Cocaine. Get everybody coked up again, and the promos would just skyrocket. They'd be amazing.
Actually, the best things came from like pills and cocaine. Like, because like, I mean, Hogan was clearly on coke. Like, the Warrior 100% was. Like, Shawn Michaels is... Yeah, yes, Randy Savage, 100%. Shawn Michaels' best stuff in the 90s, he is clearly stoned off of his ass and, like, hopped up on pills. Like, yeah, that stuff was, like, amazing.
But you can't do that anymore.
No. I mean, it is kind of sad we're here advocating for hardcore drug use, but...
Hey, the music industry, we got some great stuff out of the music industry. And
yeah.
The industry was bad. Art through adversity.
Yeah. All right. So then we had Dynamite this week, which I really enjoyed. I thought it was really good Dynamite too.
I did too. I thought it was very good.
I thought they did like the thing that I gave them shit for earlier in the us talking about this on the show. They did really well, and that was actually a surprise ending. You had Eddie Kingston kind of, pulling a fast one on Pentagon and Phoenix, and then Pac, I don't know. I think it's Pac now. Everybody used to say Pac, and then they're like, oh, it's Pac. So I guess Pac came back, and as we know, Phoenix and Pentagon were Death Triangle. So now he's like, hey, I'm back. You took my guys, and you're like kicking one out of the ring. I want to like take you down. So that's super cool, because it's just such an interesting like dynamic between the two of them. We'll see where the Butcher and the Blade come in. One thing I will say, why the hell did the Natural Nightmares beat Butcher and Blade?
I think as a closure to that storyline where it's like the good guys get over on the end after months and months of being used and abused by this woman. So I think that was...
It wasn't months. It was like the reveal of that storyline was like 3 weeks ago.
Was it? It felt like it went on a while, but it's. I think that was the justification behind it.
If anything, like the Butcher and the Blade have proven to be like valuable members of the show, I think. And I think if you're going to put a spotlight rather on Eddie Kingston's family and Pac kind of fighting for control, I think Butcher and Blade winning serves that storyline better, as opposed to just like giving QT Marshall and Dustin a win for whatever reason.
I agree. I will say this. I thought the match was stellar. I really enjoyed the match.
Yeah, I thought it was fun. Yeah. I just disagree with who went over.
Sure.
All right, so let's get to this, because I think AEW has a problem. I think AEW assumes that because Cody is such a big star, you can put whoever you want in the ring with him and everything's going to be okay. And as we saw from Jade Cargill, superstar Jade Cargill, everybody is not going to be okay just because Cody's in the segment. Number one, what the fuck does she have to do with Cody? Number two, what does she have to do with Shaq? Number three, whose decision was it to give her all that mic time? Number four, I can't believe I'm saying that Brandy came out and saved a segment, but like she was so bad on the mic, and then Brandy came out and was like fire and like really like actually turned that segment into something good. And I'm like, okay, so are they gonna do like a Cody Brandy versus Shaq and Jade Cargill? Is that what we're doing? Which I really don't have an issue with that, but like, did we need to have this woman talk for this long? I was very confused about that.
The whole segment was kind of a mess because it went off in so many different directions. Like, even after the Brandy part, it kept going and they kept throwing more people into this thing. And I was like, guys, this is... I forgot what the original point of the segment was. This whole thing is a mess. One thing, we haven't commented on it yet. It's really cool that Cody Rhodes, we can actually call him Cody Rhodes again. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And I don't mind them bringing Shaq in because I think that's a cool little... I don't know, celebrity involvement type of thing. And Shaq's like he's an exciting guy, even at, way past his prime or whatever. It's still kind of like a neat attraction to do. But the setup for it was just so odd and so bad. And Jade Cargill, that name doesn't even roll off the tongue well. It's just, the whole thing just came off terribly.
Yeah. And I think Shaq's involvement is fine. I think like anytime Shaq's been involved in wrestling, it's generally been positive. Like, he's got a knack for it. He's a natural entertainer. He's got like good charisma. So like, that's cool. That's fine. I think they'll be able to do some good stuff. I think it's good synergy with TNT. Cool. But like, yeah, just the execution of this, with the exception of Cody's promo to start, because Cody's always good generally, and Brandy at the end, I'm just like, oh, why did we do this? Also, can Cody just can he end the pomp and circumstance part of his intro and just like go into his song? He doesn't need that. Maybe at big shows, but like, I don't think he needs that.
I agree. It's when you're doing the actual show, you can just play the song and go out. You don't need to do the whole thing. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Couldn't they have set the whole Shaq and Cody thing up? I'm thinking about it now. Couldn't they have just had Shaq like throw shade at him on his show and just play the clip and then have Cody respond to it? Wouldn't that have been enough?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. You could have done a lot of things other than what they did. And yeah. What else do we have? Oh, we had the town hall with MJF and Wardlow being, I'm sorry, not the town hall, the induction ceremony of MJF and Wardlow going into the inner circle. I thought this was good. I thought I am excited to see what they do in Vegas. I think that'll be a fun skit. I think it's good that Ortiz still has an issue that's not just solved right now. And I like Jericho having to like hold everybody together. He's like, we're going to get along. You're going to make it work. There's a lot of they've gotten a lot of good television out of this stuff so far. So I think they've got a while to go before I don't know if it's going to be MJF getting Sammy kicked out and then going from there, or if it's MJF undermining Jericho. Like there's a lot of stuff they can do, and it's intriguing to not know what direction they'll take.
Poor Sammy, he didn't get the email.
He was at the beach.
What a shame, because I lose emails all the time when people try to send them to me. It's just an unfortunate thing that always happens.
Yeah. Sammy, you got to check your emails more often.
But no, I'm with you. I think the Jericho MJF stuff has been some of the best stuff in AEW lately, and I'm just thoroughly enjoying it.
Yeah. And then we get the big announcement that Kenny Omega and Jon Moxley is not going to happen at like Bash at the Beach. It's not going to happen at Revolution. It's going to happen on Dynamite December 2nd.
Ooh, that's big. That's big.
Yeah. This is, I would say, the first time. I don't want to say hot shotting because it's not hot shotting, because it's like 3 or 4 weeks really until we get there. So that's plenty of build. This is the first time Dynamite has done something like this. So like AEW, NXT has done it like 18 times. Like NXT did the Adam Cole Matt Riddle match the first night Dynamite was on.
No, Erik, it's just Riddle now.
Oh my God. We'll get to NXT guys going to the main roster in a second. They did Rhea Ripley and Shayna Baszler on the show the only show that's beaten AEW in the demo in December. They did they did the Adam Cole Keith Lee match at Great American Bash. I'm trying to think. Those are the big ones. Those are the big hot shots that NXT has done.
They did that 4-way Iron Man match for the
yes. They did that. That was another one too. So they've done all those. AEW really hasn't done that yet. I mean, they were gonna, and generally when AEW does that, they don't hot shot it. Like it'll be like, oh, we're doing the Match Beyond, War Games, whatever it is, that show that I was supposed to go to, and then COVID happened. But they announced that well ahead of time. This is really the first time that they've like put something like this on Dynamite. So from a viewership perspective, it's going to be interesting to see how they do. And from an actual storyline perspective, it's going to be interesting to see who wins, because this is a company that has made it very clear over the past year and 1 month, actually since the first show, they do not do screw job finishes. Like to the point where it's obnoxious almost. I don't mean that, but you generally will get finishes.
It would be nice to see a DQ once in a while, but yeah, it's not something they do.
But what that means is when you have a world title match, your instant reaction isn't going to be, oh well, they're just gonna keep it on whoever, and they're gonna just do this. They're probably gonna have a finish.
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Kenny won the title.
Yeah, I think so. So where do they go with that? So Kenny wins, he becomes champion. Then you got like Kenny. Do they reform the Elite? Is it like heel Elite where Omega's the champion and the Bucks are tag champs?
It feels like that's where they've been going for the last couple of weeks now, where it's like ever since the last pay-per-view, honestly, where Kenny's kind of turned and the Bucks were kind of doing that bit for a while where they had just randomly been super kicking people left and right. It kind of feels like it's heading in that direction.
Yeah. And then where do you go after that for Revolution?
Well, obviously, Hangman and Omega is like the down the road thing. So you say that
you can't do that there.
Yeah, you say that for 2021. I don't know. That's interesting. I was gonna say Cody and Omega. It's like, no, you can't do that because Cody can't go for the title.
Yeah. I mean, you could do a rematch with Moxley, maybe in like some sort of stipulation. You could do. I don't think you do Pac because he's kind of a tweener. You You need faces, and you can't. Cody's the biggest one, and you couldn't use him again because of the stipulation. I think it would have to be Moxley for a rematch, right?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe they could do like I don't know, like a big steel cage match or something.
Yeah.
Gimmick it up.
Yeah. All right, so let's go into the news item that you read a few minutes before we went on.
Yes, so Zelina Vega has just been released by the WWE. And this was coming not long after she was getting kind of a push on TV, and now all of a sudden she's gone.
Did she complain at all about Twitch or anything?
I don't know. I don't know if she was one of the ones that complained, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if all of them were complaining, to be perfectly honest.
Well, I know Paige has been very outspoken. Paige was like, a little while ago, she tweeted like, "Hey, I'm going to use, I'm learning about unionization," and I was like, "Whoa, that's going to be that could bode not well for you." I mean, I think she's still there, so it's like, who knows? But I thought that was interesting. She was getting a push. She's, I think, key to Andrade's act. Like, without her, I don't know. Like,
well, without her, he can't talk. That's the problem.
Yeah.
She was the mouthpiece for him.
Yeah, and I want, like, Aleister Black is like probably not happy about that. Although I'm sure he's not happy about a lot since he came from NXT to main roster, because like he's one of these guys. I would add like Matt Riddle, or Riddle now as he is, and some of these guys that you think are just like can't miss, like AOP. Like AOP's released now. I mean that's from a little while ago, but it's like you get these guys that, and you're like, wow, that they should be can't miss. Like FDR should be. Well, now you don't think FDR could be can't miss because that's not Vince's type. But AOP would be. Like Aleister Black's got like a spooky character. He's like generally believable. His matches are good. He does nothing. Like Matt Riddle, I guess to a point he's getting a push, but like he's not special. And I think he probably should be.
Keith Lee, they kind of ruined. I mean, he was riding high in NXT, and then they immediately put him on the main roster, and then they immediately started misusing him. So it's like, oh, yeah. Wow.
Well, I mean, he got that match with Randy Orton, but then he like didn't do anything.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, this isn't news. We all know how Vince handles NXT callouts, and like, I mean, it's funny because we're like, oh, anyone from NXT he'll ruin, but like, dude, anyone from anywhere he'll ruin. Like, when was the last time Vince like made a superstar?
It's been a while. It's been quite a while. I guess you could say, I don't know, Drew McIntyre, but I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I guess Drew and like Roman and Seth, but like even like even that, it's like, okay, he puts him over people. He'll put him over Brock. That's what he does when he wants to get you over. But like he's also just like, he makes shitty decisions. Like, God, how long did it take to turn Roman heel? Where he probably would have been like an ultra babyface by this point if they just turned him heel in 2015. Like Seth's like writing and endless feud with Baron Corbin and booking against The Fiend made him into like such an idiot that they had to turn him heel. So like, even if Vince likes you and like, and he does with those three guys that we mentioned, like the way that he handles it and the way that he allows the characters to like come off like dopes, it's just like, is he really doing favors? Like, I understand he allows them to beat Brock and to come off as big stars, but like the details matter too.
Oh yeah, well, look at what he's done with Retribution. That was, big mystery stable gimmick, and then they finally get revealed, and it's like, really, that's it? And they've been horribly misused ever since.
Did they ever give a reason to why they're doing what they're doing?
Not that I'm aware of.
Cool.
Yeah, if there was a major motivation or reason behind it, I know Mustafa Ali's been revealed as the leader, and he was like the hacker from a while back that was never revealed. But
that was him.
Yeah, that's what they're saying. But that's just something they kind of like, oh, here's the story hole we never plugged up. So Mustafa Ali did it.
Mustafa Ali did it.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was either him or the Butler. Those were their options.
Yeah. Oh, boy. All right, you got anything else?
Yeah, it's depressing. It's like NXT, like they set him up and they get him over and they get him some notoriety before heading up to Raw or SmackDown with the bigger audience, and then they just drop the ball. It's just a running gag almost at this point.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. It's like, and the sad thing is, I don't even think it matters. Like from like a viewership and like business standpoint, like NXT's like best ratings came when they're like, let's put Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins and all these and Revival and all these guys on NXT. Remember the Survivor Series stuff?
Yep.
Like that was like their biggest number. So it's almost like justifies Vince's idea. He's like, these guys can't draw on their own. And he's like, I guess kind of right, because they don't really draw. But like I would also argue that it's an inherent problem with NXT, that NXT is trying to be a rebel company while being owned by WWE. So anyone that would be interested in that is instantly going to go to AEW, because they're like, well, I'll just do this one that's not connected to that.
Yeah, exactly. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. NXT was better when it was just on the network. It was a main reason for a lot of people to stay subscribed to the network, in addition to the old archives and all the documentaries that they do. And moving it to Wednesdays on a real cable network, it's like, well, I mean, that's that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the 40 million or whatever they got for it, like, I guess it, like, I don't think they lost like $40 million worth of network subscriptions in a year. I don't know. Maybe they did. I don't know. I guess that's the decision they have to weigh. But yeah. But again, like NXT is an investment in hurting AEW. That's the whole point behind it. For any of you who thinks that it's not, like, that's really what it's there for.
Oh, completely. Well, that one week they weren't on the same night, and both numbers went up, and AEW got over 1 million, and NXT did their best number in a while, and everybody was like, "Oh, they should be on different nights." I'm like, they're not going to switch. It's not going to happen, because they are there to take viewers away from AEW. That is it. That's the sole reason they exist. Yep.
Yeah, and for people who say like, oh well, USA Network shouldn't want that. Well, USA Network does want that, because if USA Network is paying like, I don't know, $1 billion, whatever it's paying for Raw, and NXT. I mean, mostly Raw, but and then TNT is paying like I don't know, like 45 million, or I don't know what they're paying for it, but it's not. Actually, I think it's like 100 or something. But whatever they're paying for AEW, like, you look ridiculous if AEW is getting a 0.36, a point. Actually, I think without NXT, they would be like in the 0.38, 0.4. And like probably like 1.1 viewers. But really, it's the demo that matters. Whereas Raw gets like a 0.6. So if you're paying a tenth of the money for AEW and you're getting like 80% of their ratings, like, it makes USA look ridiculous. So USA has a vested interest in AEW's numbers being down as well.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, that's our delving into ratings for today. All right, so that was the show for this week, guys. Thank you for joining us. Try to be back next week after the Wednesday Night Wars, as always. But for myself, Erik Clancy, alongside Patrick Kelley, we are
signing off.